All right, so we've got 30 minutes for question and answers. You've got a mic there.
Mary, your mic works. No, her mic works.
I'm gonna sorry.
No, it works, so just keep it on.
Oh. I'm going to put this mic over there. I'm going to leave one mic up here for Erin and Mary-Louise. Please go to the mic to ask your questions so that the people at home can hear what you have to ask.
All right, we'll go and stand up there then.
Okay.
You got to come and stand in the shop.
Okay, so if you want questions and answers, but nobody has any questions?
Go.
Karen.
Hi. My question is actually about the communication device. What about the therapist or the technician that comes to train us say, well, we need to have her master this before we go on to the next page?
Okay. A child can only use what we've put in front of them. So, yes, they can master that page, but how long is it going to take? And how do we know that that's what she wants to say? And so what you need to say is, I don't know what she wants to say. I want to give her as much language as possible. And humour me. Say, look, humour me, I don't know what's in her head. How about we just put lots on there and see what happens? But it's when we expect mastery and we test to mastery and we wait for mastery that communication stagnates and language stagnates. So say, okay, well, yes, I might want an aided language display for the bathroom, and I want a general one, and I want a mealtime one, but I also go into nanas. Okay, I might need a lot of language. So let's just make sure that, yes, she can access it, that there's not too many on a page, but that so she's still got some language and I can model. And what you'll realise is that if you only get one page, you can't model it. You can't model a lot of language. So feel really strongly that you can say to the technician, I don't have enough language to talk to her and she needs this to understand me. So take the burden off your child and their need for your child to master and say, okay, my child needs this in order to understand me. It helps me slow down my speech and she really processes so well when I use this, but I've only got one page. Does that help?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I just wanted to add, Maggie's a very confident girl in a lot of ways, but if there's one thing where I feel we were complicit in damaging her, it was going along with a speech therapist until we could get to mastery. Because the idea was we're going to use this ABA method, we're going to use a Big Mac where she's going to ask for more. She's going to learn that that Big Mac means that if she wants that, she has to hit the Big Mac to get it. They collected all of this data that showed direct regression over the course of 6 weeks. And what Maggie learned was that we put words into her mouth and language is for us to control her. So for the first time, she'd be like, oh, that's cool. Okay, I want that. I'll hit the Big Mac. Oh, now I got it. You're going to give me 20 seconds to chew on it, and then you're going to take it away. Now if I want it again, I have to hit the button. Okay, fine, I'll hit it a second time. Got it. Now you're going to take it away from me, and I have to, oh, for God's sake, what are you people doing? And she went down, and she showed regression, and they said, oh, she's not ready for any kind of communication. And it's taken us years to try to get back in, to try to get her more. And we damaged her. I mean, we taught her that language is how we control her. And she believes that language is not hers. And now we have to undo the damage before we can teach her that language is power for her and not for us. That's what we have to tell these people. This is what speech therapists need to understand. We have to teach our kids that language is power for them. I can only imagine if the Big Mac had said, Mom, jump. Oh, okay. Oh, cool. Mom, jump. Okay. Mom, jump, 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 jump. Right? That would have been funny. That could have been powerful. We didn't do that. We damaged her.
Hi, my daughter's 6, and one issue that we're coming up with now is that when she goes into her gen ed classroom, like most angels, she gets so excited and she shrieks and squeals, which to me says, "Hi, I'm so happy to be here, wow." And what they say is, "Oh, shh, Elena, you're distracting everybody." So how do we allow her to communicate her joy and enthusiasm without squelching that wonderful desire to communicate it?
So what we've done in similar situations is to first maybe come into the classroom before the rest of the kids. "Oh, I'm excited to be in the classroom." Get that out first before the rest of them come in. So maybe she comes in a few minutes early. Maybe if the excitement is about her friends, greet her friends before they go into the classroom. So one of the classic things Maggie used to do is she'd get out onto the playground and she'd see her friends and she's all excited, and then now it's a little overwhelming because they get right in her face. And now she's ready to talk to them and they've turned away, so she'd grab their hair. So this was our routine. What her friends figured out, not us, was that when Maggie came up with her happy hands, they needed to take her hands. "Maggie, I'm so excited to see you." Now I can just stand here quietly. She is excited to be in the class, and that excitement needs to be recognized, right? But there's other ways we can do it. Let's get the excitement out in the hallway before she's in the classroom. "I'm excited too." And let's give her a really tangible way to say she's excited. I think they wanted Maggie to do high five, but with high five, it's like, "I'm going to put my hand right next to your hair." That one didn't work so well for us. So it was taking her hands and holding them down until the excitement. Maggie needs to touch people when she's excited to see them. And if she can't touch their hands, she might touch the hair, right? So that was how she got her excitement out. She got it out at recess, and then she could go in. But honestly, the other thing is that she's full-time in a gen ed classroom, so it's actually not as exciting. And I think that when the gen ed classroom is the special treat, when you get your 43 minutes a day in the gen ed classroom and you're really excited, you need more time in the gen ed classroom. You don't need less, right?
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary-Louise, you
Yes.
were speaking about the inability to hear and see at the same time.
Yep.
And I first heard about this a month or so ago when I had the pleasure of seeing Temple Grandin speak.
Yep.
And I was so excited because I was like, "Oh, you put a name on this." And she called it monochannel. And I wanted to share that because we can Google it now that we have a name for it.
Yep.
And I'm just also wondering, so I think auditory is my daughter's stronger suit,
Yep.
as is mine.
Yep.
And I also have to close my eyes sometimes in order to listen so that I can learn better.
Yep.
And how do I convey that message to an educator and use that as a strength?
Well, first I'd say use a tool like a sensory profile, because often the expert tool, nobody can argue with that. And then I would say we need to focus on what we want her to do. What is the key thing that you want her to do in this particular session or lesson? Because the only way that she's going to really do that is if we use our strengths. And sometimes it's helpful if you explain to teachers things like when you go to the symphony or a concert and you shut your eyes so you can really listen and take it in. Or, you know, some people like to go for a walk listening to music out, and then they can start really thinking. Try and find a way of switching into that teacher. Like you might notice in the IEP meetings that the teacher's always taking notes, or that the teacher just sits there and looks you right in the eye and listens. But you know she's actually doing the shopping list in her head. But I find using the tool, such as a sensory profile, no one can argue with it. It's there in black and white. And also I'd get video of how your daughter is at home when you're doing things like reading to her, or when you know that she is using her auditory strength, get video of it, because no one can argue with video.
Thanks, Mary-Louise, but I want to add one thing to that.
Of course.
That when she's listening to a train in the distance, her eyes shift out as if she's got strabismus
Yeah.
because she's lost control of the visual.
Yeah.
And we used to think it was an absence seizure, and it's
Yeah.
not. And I just wanted to
Yeah.
share that along the same vein of what we're
Yeah, and I'm glad
speaking
you
of.
brought that up, because for a lot of the children who have that supersonic hearing and they can hear the trains in the distance or the lawnmower man, and they're trying to draw or trying to write, but then the lawnmower man starts up and they do this, and you're saying, no, you need to focus on this. They actually need you to acknowledge what they've heard. Oh, yeah, I heard that lawnmower man too. That's it, we need to focus back on this. If you acknowledge it and give them respect for it and say, wow, that was so cool that you heard that. I'm so pleased you heard that. We might be able to talk about that later, but now we're doing this. Because otherwise you can't get back to this. They're stuck over there. So when you see that, oh, did you hear something? You mightn't have heard the lawnmower man, but they did. Oh, did you hear something? Oh, no. And what I find really beneficial for a lot of the students that I work with, if they are listening to something else and they've tuned out, I say something like, I really like how you're listening to my voice. That's so grown up. And they switch back straight away. But if I say, I need you to be looking at this, sometimes that doesn't work. But if I say, wow, I love how you're listening to my voice, that's so grown up, they'll go like that. And it's brought them right back. So just different stuff.
I also was recently given advice to have Maggie assessed as deaf-blind. So Maggie has both, she's got the CVI as well as very poor vision and won't wear glasses, and she has the supersonic hearing. And I thought deaf-blind meant Helen Keller, right? No hearing, no. There's a special category of student called deaf-blind. There's teachers who specialize in deaf-blind. There's special funding in every state in the United States, unfortunately not in Canada, for students who are considered deaf-blind. And a student who does that should get assessed for deaf-blind, because there will be instructors who can actually specialize goals and specialize strategies just for a student who cannot coordinate both vision and hearing at the same time.
Sorry, go. This side first and then we'll switch back. Sorry. Go.
Hi. My question is, for us, the first time today we heard about AAC.
Yeah.
And I had just heard about PECs before, so I wanted to understand, what is the difference, if there is a difference.
All right.
And the second question would be if there's any training for parents, and the last part of the question is whether you think it's better the book format or, for example, on an iPad. What's your experience? Our son is 1.5.
Okay. PECs is a form of aided language. You're aiding the language with symbols. But when we think about all the reasons that a child needs to communicate, expressing likes, dislikes, complaining, sharing stories, telling secrets, saying I love you. PECs can't do that. PECs is about requesting. I give you a picture, you give me something in return. I can't say, on the weekend I went to the park with PECs. Okay? Yes, for a lot of children it teaches that I say something, you do something. I do something, you do something. But it's not full language. And what our children need is full language. So a lot of children have PECs, and then they also have some aided language displays. They have an iPad. But we really need to be careful that if the only thing we're doing with children is requesting, we are inadvertently teaching that all they can do from life is take. They have nothing to give. And if we're saying, you know what, I am putting no limits on you, I am not saying you are low functioning, I want relationships and education and literacy and communication, you have something to give, I need to give you a whole language for you to get this out. In terms of high-tech, low-tech, iPad, paper, things like iPads, Dynavoxes, Vantage Light, they break down. Can't take them in the pool, can't take them in the bath, can't see them in the sunshine sometimes because they're glary. Sometimes the touch screen goes off. when I don't want it to go off. Sometimes I have to push harder than other times. And for little children, the putting straight on the iPad often removes what's called the smart partner, which is often the mum, where if I've got something like an aided language display on my dynamic device, my speech generating device, and up the top is the symbol for toast, but in order for me to get there, I need to start here and move my way up. That iPad will say everything that I went up here. But what it will first do is shout out this one down here. And so I'll get that. What my smart partner, my mum, can do, if I have a paper version, is see that I had to start here, but I'm actually stopping up here. And that's the one that I wanted. So most children need both. Because you always need an option for when it breaks down. There are lots of training, and we're going to put some things on the website. What is very difficult for a lot of families is that they will access a training and they'll get so excited and so much information and so empowered and just go, right, and there's so much to do, I don't know where to start, and you get home and you try and explain it to your husband, and I learned this and this and this, and I can't remember the rest of it, but it was, oh my God, it was so awesome, and we have to do it now. And then the speech pathologist thinks you're crazy. The teacher says, we don't do that. And that's where it kind of goes like that. So what I really want to do from here is to really keep things going, keep giving more and more information where there's going to be training, more access to webinars and documents where you can access people in America and you don't have to wait for me to come, or email me saying, when will you next be coming? How much does it cost to get you here? Because you shouldn't have to rely on me. It shouldn't take one person on the other side of the world to believe in your child. And now at least we've got this on video, and you can say, once we've edited it, this is the crazy woman that I was talking about, who I didn't really understand a lot of what she said, but I took some notes. And they can have a look, the speech pathologist can have a look, they can have a look at aided language stimulation versus choice making. You can start revisiting it, and we can get some more information in your head and in your kid's life. I don't want you to leave here today super excited but super heartbroken because it's finished, because that happens too often. And there's too many parents on the Listserv that I know that happens too.
Can you interpret that, Mary-Louise? What does that mean?
As though this was it. Oh. As though this is all you're going to get and now you're cut off. Now I'll say I am known for posting a lot on the Listserv and posting long on the Listserv. And I'm trying to figure all this stuff out as much as all of you. So join the Angelman Listserv, post about it, let's figure it out together, because this is actually exactly what we're trying to do. What I wanted to add about PECs was, from what we've seen, it's controlled, right? I get to choose which words you get right now. I'm going to give you these 8 choices. These are the 8 things you get to request. So we kind of pretend that it puts power in the child's hands, but if I don't want you to have those things, I get to take them away. It's what Caroline Musselwhite calls words from heaven, and I call it playing God. I get to decide exactly what words you get, and I'm going to give you 8 words. Which 8 words should I give you? Got 1 left, right? Playing God with language for our kids, because we are so limiting what options they have. And right now I'm going to give you these 8 words, and then tomorrow I'll give you a different 8 words. Right? So we have to figure out a system that's actually putting the control in our kids' hands, because if they're going to communicate, it's going to be because they want control over their lives, not because they want to play our monkey performance games. Certainly, Maggie, it's all about control.
Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you very much. This has been extremely informative and helpful for me, and I'm sure everybody else here. So if we could applaud instead of the silence applaud. Thank you so much. My son Maverick is 3. Everybody knows that name on Facebook, not me. But I have 2 questions. One is about seizures. You talked about, Erin, the kindling theory, the small little every now and then seizures. What was the final result on treat or not to treat? And then I have a communication question, so I'm not going to sit down yet.
I think the question is, are we really sure that it's just a few seizures, right? That, to me, is the number one question, because often, well, we think we're seeing a few things, let's do a 45-minute EEG, right? That doesn't necessarily tell us what we need to do. So our experience dealing with fairly severe epilepsy has been, it's that constant trade-off between possible side effects from treating and the time not treating. Although, honestly, I have never regretted treating seizures, because seizures suck. I mean, they rob so much. You can't do anything when your brain is seizing. And I have never, ever, every time I've thought my daughter is having some seizures, by the time we get the EEG, she's actually having a lot. We miss so much. We miss a lot of this. We don't see the staring because our kids aren't vocalizing when it's happening. I think we miss a lot of seizures. We've missed seizures that Maggie was having at night when she was sleeping. Right?
So then is it recommended, though, for a yearly EEG? Because
it really depends.
Are we missing what we're missing?
It really depends. You know? What I would say is find a neurologist who will really carefully investigate. The number one thing for a neurologist should know is that the neurologist is likely not going to ever see your kid seize. Right. You are, right? So the neurologist needs to treat the parent as their source of information. And you need to find a neurologist who listens to you. The neurologist who comes in, takes 30 seconds to look at your kid, yep, still has Angelman, I thought so. Let's adjust meds because she's gained a few kilos. Okay, see you again in 6 months. Our kids need a lot more than that. Our kids need really good seizure treatment. So first we have to make sure they really are only having a few seizures, and that to me is the major question, right? From there it depends. What the latest research in epileptology is showing is that err on the side of treating, not treating. If you went to med school 30 years ago, you heard err on the side. But part of that message was those kids with significant disabilities, they don't have much going on up here. So we can ignore the seizures because it's not going to interfere with the learning. We worry about seizures that happen to those kids who are actually thinking and need to learn because they need to go to school and they need to go to college and they need to get jobs. So a lot of the thinking that says we can ignore those little seizures is people who say, well, that's because it's not affecting thinking because there isn't any thinking happening. But the progressive, younger neurologists looking at the research today are saying treat, but try to treat without side effects.
Okay, thanks. And for communication, Mary-Louise, they kind of go hand in hand. I don't know if you've ever heard about sabotage technique. That was brought up to us. I don't know your feelings on that, and also integrated versus one-on-one direct therapy.
Okay. Is sabotage when you just go, when you play dumb?
It's kind of what it was explained to me was for 3 days, Maverick's going to get a pudding with a spoon, and on day 4, that spoon's going to be gone. So Maverick now has to somehow communicate something's missing here, and I have to tell you what it is. I personally think it's cruel, but the speech communication therapists believe that that's a form of, I guess, forced communication.
I'd like to take her spoon away.
Okay.
Look, I think it's fine to say things like, if you've got a communication display that says something like something's wrong, you can say, you can put the pudding down and go, oh no, something's wrong. What do I need? Oh, I'm thinking. Something's wrong. Yes, that's right. I'm saying something's wrong. I'm looking at it. But you must teach him problem solving, and you must teach him, he must have a way of having language. And you can say to him, oh, I'm looking at the spoons. Yes, we need the spoons. That's right. I'm looking at the spoons. I'm looking here. So you're teaching him he can use eye gaze. But to just take it away and expect him to magically know what to do when he's a 3-year-old boy, first and foremost, he's going to put his fingers in the pudding and eat it that way. Doesn't matter that he's got Angelmans. That's what 3-year-old boys do. They just go, well, blow this. I don't need a spoon. So I think there's one way of saying, oh, goodness, I forgot this. You know, I'm going to play a bit dumb. What can we do about this? Because you know that everything you say it's going in. But to sabotage, I mean, I'd never heard of that. I think it's really cruel, because what we're teaching him is, you're on your own here, mate.
Right.
Rather than saying, I've got your back, I can help you problem solve this, and that I get stuff wrong too, I have troubles too. I think that's a more powerful lesson for him.
Okay. Thank you. And then it was the one-on-one versus the integrated.
For some children, they really learn well with peers. Peer modelling is fantastic for a lot of kids. Other children have such anxieties that they can't actually cope with anything. But then there's other families who, whenever someone new comes into their house, they've had so many therapists come into their house who have touched the child, grabbed the child, manipulated the child, poked the child, forced the child to do things, play monkey games, that if someone new comes into the house, the kid's like, I'm not doing anything. So I think it's really dependent on your child. There are some children who are so overwhelmed by an environment like a preschool or a big therapy room with switch toys everywhere and balls, and that they can't actually sit and focus. So if you're working on play skills and learning to play, you might actually be better off grabbing another mum from somewhere and saying, we're going to have some time at the park or some time at home and work on this together, because I guarantee you there'll be another mum at some play group somewhere who's wanting to know the same thing. Another mum who's thinking, every time I go to that play group and that therapy group for kids with special needs, my kid is the only one that's pulling hair, my kid is the only one that's running around, all the other ones just sit there. And the mums are the ones that sit there are going, oh my God, my kid just sits here. He doesn't do anything. And then that woman's got this kid who goes everywhere. I want one like that. So, you know, it's all, grass is greener, but it is very individual. Okay. I've taught ParentChild Group for 3 years, and I've had all sorts of different kids come in, and some kids really coped well from the start. Other kids just needed time of being in their own environment, learning to feel comfortable and safe in their own little world.
Okay, thank you.
And it also really depends what you're trying to teach, right? So we're trying to teach Maggie that her AAC apps on her iPad are really her voice. I'm not finding adults are very good at that. I'm finding that when she's sitting with a group of girls and they've programmed their joke pages and they're all telling these ridiculous jokes and they're that's a great way of teaching Maggie one purpose of her AAC apps. When her friends, they programmed the word sick, and I couldn't figure out what they were doing, and they're all sick. So sick is like cool. So sick, and Maggie was like sick, 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 and I was like, what? So for making her part of the peer culture, for teaching her that she can actually communicate and get a really funny reaction. I think she liked my reaction as much as she liked her friends' reactions to it. So I think it really depends what you're teaching. I think, right?
Okay, go.
I've got a couple of questions. What was the term you used when you have trouble hearing and talking at the same time?
Hearing and talking.
Yes.
It's
or hearing and seeing.
Hearing, seeing. It's all to do with sensory processing issues, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name. Monochannel is what Temple Grandin calls it.
Okay. And the Listserv, I've never heard of that.
Okay.
How do you access
I'll let
that?
Becky do that.
So everybody, and remind and tell your friends this too. If you go to the FAST webpage and you go to the What is AS page and we give you the description of Angelman syndrome, if you scroll down to the bottom, we have instructions for how to get on the Listserv, where the Angelman Forum is, and how to connect on Facebook. You know, this community is one of the most powerful things we have, and we want to make sure every parent knows how to connect in one of those 3 places. But that will be the way to connect.
So
and if that doesn't happen, send me an email.
So Listserv is different from the Facebook thing.
Listserv is different from the Facebook. I highly recommend you get a nice Gmail account that is only for Listserv, because when we get going on Listserv, your inbox will go ping, 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 ping.
Okay.
Except we have seen Facebook bring out the worst in our Angelman syndrome community. Let me just say, the unfriending, the defriending, the blocking, and the blah, blah, you know, the little junior high cliques on Facebook can get pretty bad. Whereas the Listserv, we've dealt with some really difficult issues over the years. What I find really hard is when people go on Facebook and say, I think my child's having seizures, he's doing this, 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 and this, and it's like trying to tweet a response. I'm sorry, epilepsy, that's complicated. Aided language displays, this is complicated. I can't tweet you my suggestions. So I like the Listserv because trying to put my responses on Facebook, it really, you guys have seen them?
Well, plus you can search, because you might see somebody go through with like how to do the toileting, and you're like, I'm not there yet. And then when you're ready, they go on Facebook and ask the question that's been asked 55 times. You can just Google it on the Listserv, and there it is.
Or on the Angelman Forum, because it always stays there. The responses are on the Angelman Forum all the time. Actually, the Angelman Forum is how I met Mary-Louise, because someone came on going, I have this crazy speech therapist who wants to try this thing called POD. And it's way more, this communication book, it's so complicated, it's something my kid could never use. Could you guys all tell me your bad experiences about POD so I can make her not do it? And Mary-Louise came on and said, actually, I teach 4 kids with Angelman, and this is how we're doing it. And she gave this great response, and she got jumped on. So she wrote to me, I was the moderator, so I stepped in and I was like, we all have to play nice, we have to respect the teacher's opinion here. And Mary-Louise was like, oh, we're buddies. And I was like, no, we're not. I'm not saying I support this POD thing. That sounds crazy. But, you know, and we've been, so look.
But now we are
join the forum, and look what happens 3 years later.
Where is Angelman Forum? How do you find
AngelmanForum.org, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, but it will be on the FAST. Yeah. Awesome.
Totally underutilized, too.
Okay, and the other question I had is, where's the best place to get an AAC device or the language cards? We're using a couple of iPads now.
Your speech therapist, that is their job. Speech therapists sometimes are not trained enough in aided language displays. They are trained a lot in dysphagia, swallow management, lisps, things like that. Augmentative and alternative communication is a specialised area for a lot of speech therapists. What you can do is to join a list. If you're really struggling and the speech therapist, you're just not getting some help, you can join a Listserv like QIAT, QIAT, which is Quality Indicators for Assistive Technology. And if you just Google QIAT, it has a link to the list. And you can say things like, this is my child, this is what I'm really struggling with. And everyone who works in assistive technology AAC is on this list. You will learn a lot, and there'll be lots of emails that won't apply to you. But there'll be people who can give you ideas of how you can find someone in your area without having to go through a vendor. And it's very difficult for me because I don't know the American system very well. In Australia, I know exactly where you would go and who you would do. But I think asking something on the list or posting on the Listserv or in Facebook or on the forum, I am in XYZ suburb of Salt Lake City. I'm really struggling with who I've got at the moment. We're on this Medicaid waiver, whatever the words are that you need. Does anyone know someone I can talk to? Because there are going to be other families who can say, yes, there's this fantastic speech pathologist, and she's here, and you can get 12 things, and she's brilliant. And because you need a support person. It's very hard to do alone because you end up chucking it out the window. So I'd really hook in with the Angelman people in your area. It's not impossible to do on your own, but it's harder.
And I'm one who's doing it on my own, and I'm in touch with other moms trying to do it on our speech therapists are just, we keep getting discharged for non-compliance because we won't do the Big Mac more thing, right?
Right, we don't have the best speech therapists either.
No.
So as far as the cards also, what do you think about where you could get those?
We'll have information on the site of where you can go for more training. I'm just mindful of time. There's lots of webinars and training that you can access, or that you can ask your school to look into and access. But really, hooking in with the Angelman community is going to be your best bet, because there are lots of mums here today that have done some extraordinary AAC training. And
are there any in this room?
There are some amazing ones in this room.
Raise their hand.
Yeah, but yeah, but what you need to do is write on the listserv, because some of them that are here and that are out there are struggling as well, and they might not be in a position to support you, but they might know of another mum who's closer who can. But I know from the listserv and from Facebook that there are mums who have done some of the best training that you can do. So I think hooking up on Angelman Forum and the Listserv and Facebook, and from what we post on our page, you will get some info. Okay? I don't really, sorry.
Okay. Last thing I want to ask you, at the gala tonight, is there anything informational, or is it all just mostly
It's just
fun?
a big party, I think.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with a big party. Let me just say one quick thing. There is an email address for this education seminar that's on the FAST page. We actually got some apps donated, some really cool apps, some apps that are actually worth a lot of money, to this education seminar. They were going to go in the silent auction, but I guess it was too late. So if you take anything from this and go do something with your kid, you've got a week because these codes expire. Email it to that thing. I'll have Becky send it out, and we'll put it on the FAST Gala page. If you send us your stories to that email address that Becky was using, we're going to do a random draw and start giving away apps. So if you've got an iPad or an iPod, you want to do it. And we're up here, so feel free to just come.
Except I've got my hair lady coming in 20 minutes.
I just wanted to add, for the people looking for funding for devices, in the States there's a program called STAP, and it is funded via the Universal Service Fee on your phone bill. And if you contact Dynavox or Print Key Romich, they have the paperwork, and it's funded through your phone bill. Okay. So I just wanted to share that.
STAP.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to take this one. What was the second one?
No.
Okay, so one question and then we'll be done.
I have an 11-year-old daughter. For the last 2 years, they really dropped the speech therapy with her because she don't speak. And they're moving to trying to do sign language with her. But she's like, you grab her hand, she don't want nothing to do with you. And should they, to me, like now that I've, came over here, I feel like signing is kind of a waste of time. Should they work more with the pictures on with her instead of the signing?
Look, she needs multiple ways of communicating, and unless a child has brilliant motor control, it's highly unlikely they're going to be able to sign like an ASL signer to get every message across. So yes, some powerful signs like more, drink, pain, seizure, their name, to be able to sign the letters of their name, that's great. But if you have a think about, and if you take back to your speech pathologist, these are all the functions that my daughter needs to communicate. I want her to be able to share secrets, comment, tell me when she's in pain. Is signing going to be able to do all this?
Should her signing, when she's learning that, should it be like more one-on-one?
No, it's got to be her language.
Okay.
So what they need to do is they can teach it in explicit situations, but they also need to teach you how to do it, so that you can use it with her. Because unless you are using it, she's not seeing it as a language.
Because I don't know if she's really getting the whole idea of signing, because they actually stick in her class with other kids, and they're all just basically watching a video. So should they need more one-on-one time with her, showing you how to do it?
It's a really hard question to answer, because are they watching a video of how to sign?
Yeah, and then there's a teacher up there, but then they're dealing with all these other kids, and she's easily distracted, so I don't know if she's really paying attention to it, or...
Okay, again, I'd bring back to the school, how is this helping her realise this is her language? Okay. If the only time she has access to this language is when she's watching that video, then that's not language. Okay. What she needs is that every time someone says that's great, they go, Every time she goes to the toilet, they do this. Every time, you know, she says on the week she wants to tell her news, she's got a different way of doing it. She needs lots and lots of language. So once we have the PowerPoints up, and you can say, all right, these are all the reasons that ISAC, the International Society for Augmentative and Alternative Communication, the experts in the field, this is what they say my child needs to communicate. This is what I want to work on. How are we going to get her here? Because watching a video of other people signing isn't going to work. Sometimes it's when you bring them that expert stuff, and I mean, I sometimes do it like, oh, yeah, I went to this thing on the weekend and she said this. What do you think about that? And try and make it like it's their idea. Okay, well, so she's going to sign this. What else do you think she needs to know? Maybe we could have a look at this. We don't want the speech therapist and the teachers getting on the defensive. But what we do need to do is give them ideas of what the experts are saying our children need. And it's language. So just bring it back to language. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. And now I have to go and do my hair.
All right, we're done.
Thank you.
She said she has to go do her hair.